Hey everybody, I'm introducing our lay reader for the morning.
Whoopsie, easy. The scripture this morning is taken from the book of Luke, chapter 11, verses 1 through 13 from the New Living Translation, teaching about prayer. Once Jesus was in a certain place praying. As he finished, one of his disciples came to him and said, "Lord, teach us to pray, just as John taught his disciples." Jesus said, "Pray like this. Your name is holy unspeakable, so I'll call you Dad or Mom or Grandma or Grandpa. You are ineffable. May heaven above come here below. Give us the nutrition we need. Forgive the hurt we give. Forgive those who hurt us. Turn us away from temptation. Turn us toward you." Suppose you went to a friend's house at midnight and texted her saying, "I'm at your kitchen door. An old friend just arrived for an unexpected visit. I have nothing to feed her. Let me raid your refrigerator." She replies from her bed, "Don't bother me, it's late. We're in bed, the kids are asleep. I can't help you." "But I tell you this," said Jesus, "though she won't do it at first, just for friendship's sake, if you keep texting long enough, she will get you because she loves you and give you whatever you need because of your shameless persistence. Also, keep on asking, and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking, and you will find. Keep on knocking, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. Everyone who seeks finds. And to everyone who knocks, the door will be opened." In another place, Jesus said, "Seek heaven above all else, and live righteously, and you will get everything you need." Moms and dads, if your children ask for tuna fish, do you give them a rattlesnake instead? What do you think, kids? Would you like that? No. Or if they ask for scrambled eggs with cream cheese, do you give them a streptococcus? Of course not. So if you sinful, disgraceful, reprehensible, shameful, bad, blamable, corrupt, damnable, depraved, guilty, evil, guilty, iniquitous, irreligious, ungodly, unholy, unrighteous, vicious, and vile people know how to give good, excellent, exceptional, great, marvelous, positive, satisfying, superb, pleasing, first class, first rate, gnarly, splendid, and good gifts to your children, how much more will your holy grandmother give the Holy Spirit to those who ask?
Thank you, and very well read.
Thank you.
I must say, because that was a surprise for her. That was from the New Living Translation mostly. Obviously, I did some what we call in the business redaction, which is basically editing. You may know this about the Bible. Jesus spoke Aramaic. It was written in Koine Greek, translated into Latin, and, it's been translated ever since. And there's lots of different versions of it. I'm seeking a closer meaning of the language that Jesus is reported to have spoken, and kind of making it contextualized to us. That long list of nastiness, that all comes from one word that Jesus said about, if you bad people, is the summary of that, know how to give good things to your kids, not rattlesnake stew, then how much more can God above give to you? Hello, friend. A couple of my friends are here. Let's do a little intro here. This is the First Federated Church. First Federated Church? Tell me your name. What's your name?
Thomaston, Federated Church of Thomaston.
Federated Church of Thomaston. You can all say hi if you want to. Hi. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in here. So, and I want to thank the reader again because she did an excellent job. That was a cold reading, too. She had not seen that before. So, kudos to her. There we go. So, the sermon title is Consciousness, Let's Talk About You. Did you see what Jesus did there in the scripture? We do bad things and we do good things. Not one or the other, but we generally try to do good things. We generally try to do good things. He even said that you're bad people, meaning me too, okay? This is when I say you, I mean me. But we're good enough to do good things. That's kind of a crazy Jesus thing to say. You vile people, you who do vile things can do good things to your kids. I called God grandmother there simply because I've been hanging out with a bunch of Native Americans from South Dakota. One guy in particular who has a spirituality out there, and he's a spiritual leader out there in that group, Pine Ridge. He talks about God, grandfather creator. I see no reason why we can't say grandmother. All language about God is metaphoric. Most of it's relational, most of the good language about it. But I want to take a vote here. This morning we're going to ask you to raise your hand, actually. So I have a hard question. You know I'm a near-death experiencer, yes? Twice over. I went into ministry because of that. I was going to do something entirely else. I'm telling you that because it changed my life radically. And I want to talk about your radical changes in your life. So who here, and this is kind of an interesting question for you, and maybe if you've been following me, you know I'm going to ask this question. Who here has ever had a deceased, meaning dead for kids, loved person, someone you love, come and visit you in a dream or in a waking state? Please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, including a 10-year-old, 22. So how many here in the congregation has ever seen, felt, heard, or otherwise experienced what you could only call an angel? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, some overlap. How many here in the congregation has ever met Jesus? Nobody. That's okay. It's all right. He still loves you. How many here have had some kind of conversion, indwelling experience of the divine? Like you had a washover of love that you couldn't explain, like an explosion of bliss inside you. Anyone? 1, 2, 3, 4. Who here has ever gone out of their body and had a divine vision? Nobody. That's a lot more rare, okay? That particular thing is a lot more rare. Who here, also common, has ever had a loved one who is deceased, who you know leaves a sign or a symbol for you in your life? Could be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, now 20, some overlap. Everybody here who raised your hand once, please raise your hand again. I see 5 people with their hands down. I'm going to guess that's 85% of the congregation. Now, was that the most significant spiritual experience of your life? Did it shift you, for instance, and I'll use this because it's the most common one, when your deceased loved one came to you, did you shift from believing in heaven to knowing that the afterlife is real? Yeah, I see heads nodding, hands raising. So you shifted from belief to knowing, partial knowing, okay? Not a whole, complete knowing, a partial knowing. Now, how is that even possible? Because you are not your body. You are your consciousness, living in your body, like an avatar. Anybody know the word? Anybody seen the movie Avatar? All right. Or, here's a terrible example, but it's effective, The Matrix. Because if you saw the Matrix series, you know that there's evil overlord machines that are bent to destroy humanity. We're going to call that the loving God, not evil, but the concept is the same. You are software downloaded into hardware, and you don't know it. The brain is the only part of, well, I don't know if it's the only part of the body, but the brain is not self-aware. The brain doesn't know it's a brain. We know we have a brain because we're intellectual and we've studied it. We've looked inside. But the brain doesn't know it has a brain. You don't see the brain. So, you all have experience, direct experience with God. 85% of you have direct experience of the divine. I've spent the last 15 years basically outside of the church, working in television, writing, broadcasting. My audience was not just a Christian audience. They were Buddhists and atheists and agnostics and Hindus, Baha'is, Jains, Muslims, Christians, fundamentalists, literalists, Catholics. What I learned traveling the country and having that audience is that the people are hungry and thirsty for God. And they are hungry and thirsty for God because they are secondarily body and they are primarily consciousness. Science is calling soul consciousness. That's my interpretation. There's this guy named Dr. Sam Parnia. He is in a couple of different places. He's in Southampton University in England, and he's at Stony Brook and Long Island. He's a surgeon. He started noticing people dying on his table, coming back and telling stories, cardiac surgeon, telling stories about experiences. And he looks at his measurements and he says, but you were dead. And they tell him stories. So he began a 10-year study, which he concluded this year and published a paper. And in that study, the summary is this, and he's a scientist, he's a serious scientist. The summary is this, that he thinks that human consciousness continues to exist for a time after death. He doesn't say where the consciousness is. He just says that after you die, consciousness continues for a little time. That's all he's measured. He's measured a little bit of time. Do you know the word superposition? Anybody? It's a science word. I had this experience where I started thinking about quantum physics and cosmology, and there's this thing called superpositioning. You hear about quantum computers? Anybody hear about quantum computers? It's an incredible thing. Computers, my phone, your phone, all functions on a series of zeros and ones. It's binary, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. That's what all code is underneath it. Quantum computers, and Google is going to be coming online with the most functional quantum computer expected next year, is a 0 and a 1 on at the same time. It's not a 0, it's not a 1, it's a 0 and a 1 at the same time. Quantum entanglement. They've taken photons and touched them and separated them and introduced a third photon. And these photons communicate to each other across vast distances instantaneously without any connection we can see or understand. There's more to physics than we have any idea. And it's right inside you. It's right inside you. In the same way that it's a 0 and a 1, you are human and soul at the same time. And when God speaks to you directly, that happens on the soul side of the equation. And then you see it on the body side. And God speaks to us in ways that we can comprehend. Some people see angels, some people have the dead come back to visit them, and that is not just Christians, okay? Jews and Muslims and Jains and Zoroastrians, all over the world, people have the dead come back to them and say, what do? It's a telecommunication, generally, of love, of well-being, of apology, of forgiveness, of I'm okay. Oh, this is such a great place. Don't worry about me. And what happens to you who has that experience, it doesn't eliminate your grief, but it gives a little shift. Because now you know what you used to believe, that your loved one is still living and loving you. You now experience the infinite, eternal connection of divine love in your personal life from the other side into this world, and you perceive it with this thing. This is your veil. You know, they talk about the veil, right? This is your veil. This is the veil you're living in. Plus, it's inside the world, and the world is a veil too. And it's not just Earth. It's all of the 10 billion galaxies and all of their star systems and all of their planetary systems, their exoplanets. It's all the black holes. It's time itself. It's matter. It's energy. It's quarks. Everything. Everything there is secretly made of love. Everything is made of love. You are made good. And then you get stuck in this veil. And then we have these evil intents that Jesus talks about. And we still do good in the world, even though we're stuck in this world. And you know, that evil intent thing, that gets a bad rap. When I was dead, I saw very clearly, I went through hell, by the way. I went through purgatory, maybe. I suffered all the pain that I ever gave away in my entire life to everybody from their point of view, whether I intended it or I didn't intend it. And that pain that I gave away was magnified 10,000 times by what I thought I had given them. So it was much, much worse. The little tiniest thing was much worse. Juxtaposed to that was all my reasons for doing it. Why did I hurt my sister Cindy? Hi, Cindy. Because she's 2 years older than me. And I felt, whatever was going on. I felt ashamed for all the bad I had done, all the vile, evil, despicable things. Not because they were bad, because I saw that I could not help it. Because I live inside the veil, and that's what happens when you're in the world. You're in the world, you're no longer this pure soul because it's filtered through the body of the veil. And because of the love that I carried with me back to heaven, I was able to perceive the divine love that was 10 bazillion times greater than I could ever explain to you. And I was utterly known, beloved, and forgiven. And then infilled with oneness of being. And you are too. You are too. This is not an exclusive experience. You are superpositioned. You are soul and body. And this thing you live in, you get to shuck it and go home. And those experiences of the divine that you've had is God reaching to you in ways that you could perceive in the world and giving you what Paul calls a partial knowing. And now we know in part, and then we'll know in full. Now I see dimly through the veil, and then I'll see face to face. Only God has no face. Because here's the thing, God has no name. Because there are no concepts and language on the other side. There's nothing physical. You don't need it. It's less than. It's less than. This is less than. This is cruder. You don't need your DNA. You won't have your brain. You won't miss it. You'll be happy without it. I know Susan, your new pastor. I've known her for a long time. I like her a ton. She has intellect and compassion, but mostly what I like about her is I see the light of God in her. She lives through her faith. People go from belief to a little bit of knowing to a deepening faith. You all want to fill your church? There are thousands of people all around you seeking the divine, and they don't know how to do it. And I think that we need to go where the people are and speak the truth of love, universal love of all humanity and creatures. I'm going to end with this little mind-twisting thing for you. Anybody in the Navy, formerly in the Navy? Any Navy people here? Anybody? Wow. Okay, no Navy people here. We live on the coast. So you know what the Navy did a month ago, 2 months ago? Anybody? They're creating a new protocol. The new protocol for their pilots is to report UFOs. You know why? Because 2-3 years ago off of San Diego, they scrambled 2 Hornets off of an aircraft carrier, and they videotaped and audio taped UFOs. And you can look it up. It's on the web. It's in Google. It's in YouTube. And it's not fake. It's Pentagon. And then we come to find out that on the eastern seaboard in the last year, there's been clusters of these anomalous aerial vehicles that they don't know what they are, but it became so important to the Navy that, like, this could be a threat. We better figure this out. Pilots have been reporting this, but not really, because nobody wants to be the kook. So now the Navy's creating a protocol for this. And you know what that does to theology? When we discover that there's intelligent life elsewhere in the universe, and that we're not the most special sapiens or mammals, it makes us less than. So that's going to happen. I think the church needs to prepare itself by bringing in science and deconstructing all of the false interpretations, which your church is already doing, because I read your bulletin, and I know Susan, because things are going to change in the 21st century. They already are. They're already changing. And here's the good news. The good news is that that little thing that happens to us when we have an experience of the divine that's direct, we're not the first people. That's been going on for millions of years, hundreds of thousands of years, ever since humanity became humanity. 200,000 years ago? I'm guessing, of course, because that's prehistory, but we have information globally that the dead come back and visit the living. What makes us special? Nothing. Nothing except for the divine love that's living and waiting for each of us when we leave here. I hope I challenged you this morning. I hope I made you think. Because you have a gem in Susan, and I haven't talked to her about this, but I'd be willing, if I were a betting person, and I'm not, I don't even buy lottery tickets. If I were a betting person, I bet she'd be very interested in talking to you about this. Because the people are hungry for the divine, and they don't know where to look, and all the rules and regulations of the church, not just this church, not just Protestants, not just Catholics, it's getting in the way. The human being is made in the image of the divine, and it's not an old guy with a beard, and it's not a woman with white curly hair. It's the photon of light inside of you that is wave and particle at the same time. You are, Jesus said, the light of the world, and he was not kidding. You are created by the Creator. You just can't see it. You catch glimpses of it, and those glimpses shift you from belief to knowing, but seeing is so hard here. But when we gather together, little tiny lights together, and strip away all the stuff that's in the way, fire. I'm going to finish with this. I hang out with some pretty strange people now. Pardon me, my friends. Yeah, the near-death community is a strange group of people. We have all sorts of after effects. I interfere, for instance, with 90.1. Anybody listen to public radio? Yeah, I can, 80% of the time in my house, I can move around my kitchen and interfere, catch the radio signal, and stop it from getting to the radio station. Very frustrating, I tell you. Some of my friends That's an easy one. Some of my friends see ghosts, the living who've just died. I have a friend who's a paramedic. She sees lots of people leaving their bodies. I have a friend who became a medium as a result. She sees dead people too. Because the dead are not gone. They're just not here. I think the church needs to talk about real spirituality. Your spirituality, your consciousness, what's going on in your life spiritually. Last question for the day. Who here in the church has ever told anyone in the church what you raised your hand for before? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the only church that I've ever been in the last year, literally in the last year, where the number wasn't 0. So if you're already talking about it in your church, you're like leaps ahead. Keep talking about your spirituality, because that's where it's at. Keep seeking the divine. Keep gathering in groups. Open your doors wide to conversation and consideration of things you might not have imagined before, but you know right here. Because this is the one treasure you get to carry home with you. You get to bring all the love you ever gave away, and all the love that was ever given to you, and it's magnified by 100,000. You are beloved. You've always been beloved. And I'll finish with Jesus' most famous words: fear not. So, see you later.